Tensión total en Occidente. Donald Trump genera furia en la OTAN con su mensaje después del choque entre Zelensky y Estados Unidos de América. Y atención a las brutales declaraciones de Ursula von der Leyen, porque ya está corroborando que han llegado a un acuerdo para que ese paquete de medios congelados, activos congelados de Rusia, sean enviados a Ucrania durante estos próximos 2 años. Brutal. Con estas declaraciones, vamos a escucharlo, atención.
Financing needs for the next 2 years around 90 billion euros. So the discussion this week at the European Council will be decisive. We know that we will never be able to match the sacrifice of the Ukrainian people. But we will support their fight for survival for as long as it takes, for their country, their territory, and their right to live free from fear. 34 years ago, this month, Ukrainians voted overwhelmingly for independence from Russia. They voted yes to Ukraine being Ukraine. That choice remains unbroken. The Ukrainians defended every day, admirably, on the battlefield. They deserve a peace worthy of their courage.
Ahí vemos las declaraciones de Ursula von der Leyen y cuidado porque Donald Trump lo tiene muy claro. Se ve claramente, bueno, aquí vamos a ver lo que ha dicho Zelensky, lo que ha dicho Merz y lo que responde Donald Trump en relación a esos debates abiertos en Berlín. Cuidado, porque tanto Ucrania como Alemania se han unido y ahora viene lo peor, porque si Alemania ya confirma que va a continuar ayudando a Ucrania, pues entonces esos 28 puntos quedan obsoletos y Donald Trump ahora va a ver cómo los europeos van a estar incrementando su ayuda a Ucrania y cuidado porque esto podría contemplar una terrible batalla en el ambiente, como decimos, tercera guerra mundial prácticamente, ¿no? Vamos a escucharlo.
Herr Zelensky, Jörg Blank von der DPA.
Back, Mr. President Zelensky. Is it true that the USA is demanding that Ukraine also give up the areas in Donbass that have not yet been occupied by Russia? Is it with the question of security guarantees conceivable that troops from NATO or EU countries, for instance, secure frontline as a security guarantee, boots on the ground? And the question that interests many people is, will there be a ceasefire in Ukraine by Christmas?
Mistakes with the translation. I think Ukrainian speakers understood what it was about. We'll try, if I understood the second part of your question. First of all, I would like us to treat the President's delegation with respect. Trump. I don't believe that the USA demanded anything. I see us as strategic partners. Therefore, I would formulate the issue of territories as follows. The Russian vision or Russian demands we heard from the USA. We perceive this as the demands of the Russian Federation. And therefore, I also could not demand anything from the USA, but convey to my colleagues in the USA to relay our vision to the Russians. That's how I would respond to your questions. That's why I said, there are sensitive issues. We exchange thoughts, and also hear the vision of the Russians or their goals. We make efforts to explain our position. I am glad that we are being heard. And regarding this issue, such a sensitive one like territory, what will come out in the end, we will see together. Besides this, there were questions, on which we had the same vision, basically, during the dialogue. So, regarding the second part of your question, it's about the line of contact, right? I didn't quite understand that there will be some presence. We are discussing security guarantees. And my message regarding security guarantees is that before taking certain steps on the battlefield, the military and the civilian population must have a clear understanding of what the security guarantees will be. Understanding. This is very important. Since the US is not offering us NATO membership, because membership to NATO is entirely written out, understandable. Although I don't exactly know how it would work. Well, thank God that NATO countries are not yet engaging in action. This means they have a peaceful life. Therefore, it's important that the United States perceives Article 5 like plus appropriate security guarantees. We are just now working to have all this written out. And we are making progress there. I see military details from the military, which they have been developing. They look very good, although it is the first draft. And the issue of monitoring during the ceasefire is, in my opinion, a part of the security guarantees. The issue of monitoring, who carries out monitoring, in what format, and what sanction steps for violating this monitoring in all areas. These are the questions I raised, and it is important that we all agreed that we need to work it out. And who is on the contact line during the ceasefire?
Bueno, fijaros porque ya estamos comprobando, ¿no? Esto es más que evidente que realmente Zelensky tampoco quiere entrar en una confrontación directa con Donald Trump. O sea, ya está diciendo, no, es que realmente ellos son una parte nuestra y están en este conflicto con nosotros. Otra cosa es que Donald Trump lo ve así, porque ya hemos visto que Donald Trump realmente al final sí está dando su iniciativa sobre, bueno, vamos a ver qué hacemos con estos, vamos a ver qué hacemos con Zelensky, pero al fin y al cabo Donald Trump tampoco está garantizando esa seguridad militar y económica a Ucrania. Ahora vamos a escuchar a Trump también.
These are people, corpses, technological monitoring, or all together. This is an issue under development by the military, and I would give them the opportunity, as they are professionals, to work it through further and propose it for victory. Thank you for the question. First of all, we had such a first meeting or the first such days of meetings in this composition with Mr. Witkoff, Mr. Kushner, and also with the United States team. Before this, similar meetings our teams conducted, and there were meetings together with European representatives of national security advisors. Well, and many meetings, we know, of this American team took place in Russia with Putin. I always really wanted this team to come to Ukraine, but I was prepared that if it wasn't possible due to various reasons, we could have a long conversation or conversations and try one to understand each other. And there was indeed progress on many issues. I'll be honest, I don't know how the parties of aggression will perceive the results of our talks. What's important is that we were heard. I have a deep understanding of the details of this war, and it is very important that our colleagues in the United States heard all these details. Undoubtedly, if we had these meetings earlier, I think the progress would be even greater. But I am grateful to them for our really good work together. There are some things that, in my opinion, are destructive and definitely won't help us. It's important that I don't see them in our new versions of documents today. And for me, it's important because dignity matters, and the issue of concessions is certainly irrelevant. I believe that the question of territories is a painful one. The issue of territory is painful because Russia wants what it wants, and there's no need to go further since it's a long dialogue. We clearly understand what they want, and some may believe it, some may not, but we know 100% what they want. Certainly, we have different positions with Russia regarding territories.
Vamos a escuchar también a Donald Trump a ver qué es lo que tiene que comentar, porque realmente él no está tranquilo y sobre todo no está a gusto con las palabras de Zelensky.
Well, I think that the delegation is largely there right now, actually. They're in Europe, and they met with those people that I called out before, the various countries, plus some others. They want to see it end, Katie. They want to see it end. They all, I want to see it end. They want to see it end. I actually think that President Putin wants to see it end. You know, I've had good talks. We've had good talks with Russia. And I think they'd like to get back to a more normal way of life.
Mr. President, follow up there. An Article 5-like deal seems to be emerging without NATO membership for Ukraine. If such a security guarantee is offered, what incentive is there for Ukraine to give them any sort of territory?
Well, look, you have, they've already lost the territory, you know, to be honest. I mean, the territory is lost. But in terms of security guarantee, we're working with Europe on it. Europe would be a big part of that. And we're working on the security guarantee so the war doesn't start up again. We don't want to have a war start up again. You know, as I said, with Thailand and Cambodia, two people I get along with great, and I dealt with them and I called them and I said, look, fellas, you got to relax. You got to take it easy. They lost. You know, they started the war again. I got it ended. And things like that are going to happen. War. There's nothing pretty about war, nothing good. And there's nothing you can do to predict what's going to happen. But I think we've made a lot of progress with respect to Russia and Ukraine. I hope. You know, last month, it was close to 27,000 soldiers were killed, mostly soldiers, but 27,000 people, but mostly soldiers were killed last month in Russia versus Ukraine.
Is there a time limit on security guarantees?
Well, there's no time limit. The time limit is whenever we get it done. I mean, we're going to try to get it done. We're making progress. It's more difficult than anybody could have thought. I would have said that half of the wars that I got settled, some were going for over 30 years, that half of them should have been more difficult, and they actually haven't been. There's a lot of dislike between the two leaders, you know that, and so it probably makes it a little bit tough.
Spoken directly to Putin? Have you recently spoken directly to Putin?
Yeah, I have.
Estas son las palabras de Donald Trump. Ha hablado directamente con Putin, por más que se intente negar lo evidente. O sea que mucha atención también a todo esto. la cosa se pone tensa. Nos vemos en el próximo capítulo, amigos. Un saludo y hasta luego.